John Robb here interviewing German legend Phillip Boa. So, where you were at in this precise moment of time?
Oh yeah, my last album officially was called Earthly Powers, and it was from 2018. That's right. But since then, I prefer to that way of working to re-release the classic Phillip Boa and the Voodoo Club albums by enriching them. Not sure about the expression, with new material that I record in Malta with my friend David and other people involved. And then we release a classic album we just did called Hair with our biggest whatever hit in kind of.
Yeah,
And then we had 10 new songs, really cool new songs, in my opinion. We just released that, a couple of weeks ago.
it's an interesting concept. So, do you get yourself back into that place when you're making that record to make the new songs match, or does it not really matter if the songs match? 30 years apart.
I think with that's a real good question. This point, we listened to the albums. We listened to the old albums, and the albums were quite weird anyway. So, and the way of producing is the same kind of. And I tried to listen to the old stuff and get inspired by it and write a bit. I choose songs that could fit in that world. I don't know what new album is for me at the moment. I don't know. I like new songs, but it's like Taylor Swift doing it, for example, and others. They re-release old stuff and then they add new stuff, but a bit in the tradition or in the vibe of, that's well, otherwise, you could just call it like normal new songs, whatever. But at the moment, I like to do that, and also the record company gives us a bit of an advance for it, so I can work, like in the old days, really cool, and no pressure, no record company telling me what to do at all, totally independent. I do what I want; they don't interfere. That one bit, wonderful.
I mean, it's interesting looking at it in scale of longevity because your albums before, up to Earthly Powers, they were getting bigger and bigger. So your last album was number three in Germany. It seemed like you're on a really good trajectory there. I think it's good to revisit your old stuff and celebrate your old material, but it seemed like your new material was actually your most successful stuff.
Yeah, that worked. They were on that album Hair. Now we just are number three as well. Number three in the official album charts. That's weird. Although we are not streaming, we are not a good streaming band, but the people buy vinyl like hell, and those uh, boxes, with like CDs and all the old pictures and information. The people love that. And as long as they love it and the fans love it, why not? You know what I mean? That's what I like to do.
Yeah. I mean, when
And
you
it's
revisit, oh, sorry. Yeah.
sorry, you.
Oh, yeah. When you revisit the older stuff, and do you find you revisit the older you, and you wonder who that person is, or are you the same person really? Probably a bit battered by life like the rest of us, but still the same person in there.
Well, it's like you, John, huh? We never change. We one of the people who are never changing. You know what I mean? It's just I don't think musically that I ever changed. I suck a lot of new music. Yes, I'd find it hard to find good music nowadays, but I find it and I get inspired by it, and I do my own songs and the lyrics. Okay, they are a bit more reflecting what I see. I change, but I get influenced by my son, who is good in AI. Doesn't mean that I like AI. You know what I mean? But he gives me lots of information. My daughters pass me information, so I don't stand still. Can you say that? You know what I mean? I'm sucking the news, and so, but still, my mind and my attitude is totally like it used to be.
Yeah, there's always a thing fascinating about your music, and there was was something quite English about it, but also something quite German. It's like a almost a perfect synthesis between two different cultures. Would that be fair to say?
Oh yeah, yeah. We were, we and at school we learned English quite intense. It's like intensively, whatever. Um, and then we went over. I wasn't even. I was maybe 17. We went with a school twice to London, and I really got influenced by that. That was, and back then I had an English accent more. Nowadays, my accent is totally confused. I have a Maltese influence, I have an English influence, I have American family, and I have a German, obviously, accent, and it's really tough to sing sometimes. So I try to tell the producer or the engineer, say, I have no accent at all. I just sing normal English. But yeah, I was always influenced by obviously post-punk and punk in my very young days, and then post-punk, all those more adventurous bands, and all that. Obviously, yeah, and it didn't really change.
I mean, when you look back on it, do you see certain aspects of German culture mixed in with your music? And if so, what would they be at that time?
Um, it was certainly Can, and which I liked. I liked Can because they were just doing the repetitive, great, very independent stuff. They didn't give a fuss about anything else. And I had the honor later to work with the drummer on one album with Jackie. Um, and so I got my, my influence, whatever was met by, I don't know how to express it. I got the honor to work with Jackie, and he changed again. He changed my way of seeing the culture of pop music, rock music a bit. Definitely was weird in the studio with Jackie. We had the album, and he slowed everything down. We already had the album pre-written. Then Jackie came in. That was in Berlin, and he slowed everything down. And I got shocked and I ran out and I said, my God, my music has changed. And I got totally desperate. Then I was thinking for an hour, I was thinking, well, why not, And then I ran back in and I said, let's go on. It's cool. I do it. And then that was the result, was a slow album that left space for other stuff, and it still influences me. That moment, or that was 1 week. We even had him as a guest drummer on tour for a while. There's extra drummer. It was cool. Yeah, it was a good experience. So can definitely.
I mean, it is amazing when you listen to that record. I mean, so what he brought to it was a sense of space, I'm guessing here, because he doesn't drum like he drums in Can, does he? He drums in a different kind of way in that record. But it's about more what he brings to the music as the arrangements and the idea of not cluttering things.
He started as a jazz drummer in Barcelona with jazz musicians, and he was never having a clue about rock music and stuff like that. Anyway, and he just drummed. He did what he wanted totally. He ignored what you had in mind. He
Yeah,
just drummed and drummed. Hypnotic. And if you couldn't understand him, he said, "Yeah, so what? I drummed like that anyway." You know what I mean? He
yeah,
changed a lot of people, because even in Cannes, okay, he was in Cannes, he had other real strong individuals, you know what I mean? And I think they fought a lot. And so, but he still did what he wanted. But then he worked with other bands, for example, also with like Ja Wobble, I think, or David Sylvan from Japan. And he still didn't change really, but because the music of Japan and Ja Wobble or whatever was different, his style appears to be different from Can, but it really wasn't, I think.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. You can still feel him there. It's just a different way of him expressing himself. He's definitely listened to the songs, and it's not like he's just turning up and doing "This is my way" or "The Highway." He's definitely meeting in the middle a bit more than probably what it feels like.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm. I mean, I mean, obviously in Germany, you've always been well. You always like to say you're like a small cult figure, but I think you're quite successful. Look at the stats and the venues you play, and you occupy an el but now like we all do in a way, an elder statesman kind of role. So, I mean, what do you feel your role in the German music scene is now? Do you feel that you do occupy that elder statesman role, that representative of an indie period in the post-punk period? You know, how do you keep this? You know, decades later, you're still flying the flag. Do you think that's your role in German music culture?
Well, it's sometimes I think about it. I think people, I don't know how they see me. Certainly, like the way you described it. The point is that what I show them, what I show other bands, if they care, I don't know. I do what I want. The point for me is about independence. Is I I do what I want, I don't give interviews anymore. So bloody what? I don't do them anymore, right? So I play the music I want. Okay, I play in if I'm in Leipzig, I don't want to play the big hall or a medium size hall. I want to play 3 gigs in a small club every year, every Christmas. I just, well, musically, I just absolutely do what I want. And I think that's defines of course, older gentleman, blah blah blah, statesman of German in rock or whatever. I'm sure I'm something like that, but I just really don't analyze myself. What I really like is to write new songs and find a way to release them. That's that's what I love, and good gigs, which
Do you,
sometimes you go to a gig. And I don't like the bigger halls. If they sound bad, I'm not going to play them. You know what I mean? They have to sound good. And then I have to, in COVID, I felt how important music can be. When we had, sometimes we could play before other bands because of some cultural background. And then we got an earlier allowance to play gigs. And I felt how happy we could make the people, by a gig. I never felt that before so much. The people went out, like 1,000 people go home, relieved psychologically, and that was for me was the greatest moment since I don't know, since ever, kind of.
so that was in a sense more than a recalibration of what music is worth, but actually a completely different, a reinvention of the value of your music and music itself for you.
Well, that sounded very intellectual, John. And try.
Sorry, it's too much English there, isn't there? Um,
No, no, no. But try to ask simpler.
it was, in a sense, it was asking if it was, you know, like when you started playing music and the role music had in your life and the audience's life. Was this a reminder of that power or a reinvention of that power, a different version of it?
Um, yeah, it was. It was a reminder of that power, and now I feel the power again. Now, in the last years, we are a bit more successful again. In the late night, in the 2000, let's say between 2000 and 2013, we were not very big. We were not successful, and now we're getting a bit more successful and a bit more. And yeah, it feels like a reinvention of the early power. Yes, and it makes, obviously it's a good feeling, a bit unexplainable, but it's there.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, some artists, they do have their time and they represent their period. And you can sort of do that for decades, can't you? You know, they play the hits, the two hits or whatever, and it becomes uh, like a museum piece, which is fine. They're curators of their museum. But because you've constantly released music, your career has a line, doesn't it? It keeps going. I'm just wondering why people have, in a sense, rediscovered you. Is it because you kind of, when people make records, they start off with a bit quirky, then they go commercial, and then if they get it right, I think, is they rediscover the quirk, but they also don't lose the commerciality. Is that something you've managed to do, get that balance?
Okay, I try to understand. I don't. I'm also a curator of my own museum, right? I
Mm.
am, I have to admit, especially the way I release. But on the other side, I have that freedom that people might look up to. I just, as an artist, I am not corrupt, and I'm doing everything I want musically, anything. If I write a commercial song about AI, like this song called Bay Rum, sounds a bit commercial, it sounds, but really it is about AI, it's so not very positive. It sounds whatever, doesn't matter. Yeah, I don't know. I just do what I want, and people bring their kids, I think, in the big towns like Berlin and Hamburg and stuff, I can feel that the audience gets younger, and that's cool, maybe because the parents tell them that I just don't give a damn,
Yeah.
I just do what I want. Don't know. I represent something that I don't know anymore, which is a person who doesn't really give anything about anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Society, anything, just nothing can threaten me really. I just do what I want, and in the moment, in that moment when I cannot do that, I can't do that anymore. I would stop right now. Bingo. Here.
Well, also, conversely, you've always been very good at pop music. Pop music, you've always been able to write a great chorus. The songs, they're alternative. There's quirky moments. There's art rock in there, of course there is, but also it's great pop music. And is pop music important to you?
Yeah, I prefer a good pop song to a bad rock song. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's of course that there's good pop music, there's good rock music, there's good anything. It's like, yeah, it influences me. If I have a song and I like it and it's pop, I say, well, it's a good song. You know what I mean? I always like to play with music. I always like from the very beginning, the old records. I always played with genres. You know what I mean? I wasn't single-minded. Like I said, I can't do that. I can't do that.
yeah,
No, I just played with it.
yeah. I mean, was it frustrating for you that it became a very German thing? Was that I mean, we tried years ago to help get you known in England, and it never, well, not yet. It hasn't crossed over into the UK yet. Do you find that frustrating?
No, 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 not at all. I don't know exactly what you mean, but we had our time in the UK. We had our time everywhere in Europe, and from a certain point on, I just didn't want to do that anymore. It's just we played the Garish about, I don't know, in London. That was good. Was packed about like 10 years ago or 12. I don't know. It was a. I don't have that ambition. You know what I mean? Because you have to work hard for that. But I prefer to hang out in the studio in Malta and you know drink cappuccino. I don't know if that answered your question really, but
Kind of, because I was just thinking, in the last few years, it's been quite interesting. Like bands like Sparks, who obviously were really big at one time in the 70s, but in the last 3, 4, 5 years, they've become really big again in the UK. And Sparks are always looked on as being the most British band ever from America. And in a sense, I would think that Phillip Boa is the most British band in Germany. I mean, has that an understanding of the nuances of British pop culture, the sarcasm, the irony, the stylings of it. how you can make art rock into pop. Very British ideas, aren't they? And very few continental worldwide artists get those kind of ideas. Sparks
Yeah.
do amazingly, but I always think that you do as well. And I think now, weirdly, 40 years in, there's probably more chance that the British audience will understand what you were doing than there was when you started.
Yeah. I agree to everything you said. Definitely, it was, even the writers, I read a lot, and and even the writers, yeah, the irony, the sarcasm, everything, but, I'm not that ambitious to try to regain territory in anywhere. You know what I mean? I'm
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
I just prefer to, I don't know, to read. I read a lot, I love film and all that. I'm not totally 100% only a musician.
Well, another thing that I always really loved about your music, and I think some of the greatest music does this, is it combines a melancholy with a euphoria. So you have like a big chorus, a great chorus, but there's also a melancholic sort of backdrop to it. Is that something you're aware of? Is that something you would do deliberately to make a great piece of music, or is it just the way it all comes out?
Absolutely. It's I do it deliberately. I should do more interviews in English. That's on purpose. Okay, that's on purpose. Yes, of course, I'm aware of it. Yeah, always been, and never will never change.
And do you lyrically does it change over the years as well? Do you find it gets more finessed, or are you working to get things simpler? Do you find the use of English gets easier the more you do it, or is it's just basically like we said before when you sort of do the new songs with the old songs? It's just looking into that period, and it hasn't really changed at all. It's just the way you create stuff.
I don't know. I can't answer that really.
Yeah, it's
Don't know.
just the way it comes out. I mean, do you work a lot in isolation? Is it like it sounds like you do? You just spend a lot of time in Malta. You're not you don't spend a lot of time hanging around at showbiz parties, being part of the music scene. I'm guessing.
Uh, I had my time, and it didn't impress me too much. So yeah, that's right. Isolation. I wouldn't. It's a bit Well, I'm a bit different. I'm a fan of, like, there's a American writer called Thomas Pynchon, right? And he
Yeah,
has books, one or two books, especially one. They play in Malta. And I spend, for example, to explain you how I am, I spend weeks to find the old places in Valletta where that he describes in a novel called V, and I try to find the old pieces and break into them and look at them and stuff like that. That's what I like to do, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. And obviously when I read him, or if I look into the news, anything, that inspires me to write, obviously. But I never want to get political. I want to just and yeah, I'm more philosophical than, or maybe at the most sociology sociology comes in a bit, but I'm trying to not get political, because politics change too much, and then the timelessness might suffer and stuff like that.
I mean, Malta's obviously a very important part of your story. I mean, I know you record. I think probably nearly all your records there these days, but also been there for a long time as well. And what is it about Malta that you really like, and does it affect you artistically? I guess the isolation of being there, in a sense, away from the European mainstream. But is there something about the place itself?
Musically, it doesn't influence me at all, right? It's just that the engineer knows me, and the engineer is a friend, and he knows exactly how I want it. I want a sound. I tell him I want a sound. You throw something out of the window, something really
Yeah,
heavy, and the car is parked down there, and I want that noise. I want that noise and that song there, and he tries to re you know to fix it, to get that sound, because he knows how I'm working. That kind of, it's like a bit like film music, It's like but Malta and especially Valletta is a weird place, Two of my favorite writers have lived or written about Malta, which is Anthony Burgess, actually from Manchester, and Thomas Pynchon. They both have a Malta relationship, and they were a real heavy influence for me to go to Malta in 1992, I think. And it's still a bit of a magical place, but not like the old Malta. It's changed, got commercial nowadays, a bit too commercial now.
Yeah, I went there about 15 years ago, and it was, in a way, it's almost like your records. There's something very old English about it, like 1950s England, but there was something modern about it. But also had that little twist of Arab culture as well, and then a bit of Italy. It was a mixture. It was like one of your songs, like going through lots of different changes. It somehow made sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
So do you live there as well? Do you sort of split time? You spend a lot of
I
time there.
I split time. I still live in Dortmund, not in the house that you know. I live here and I live in Malta, mainly nowadays, both.
Do you feel you have contemporaries at all, or do you like you're very much working on your own in isolation? But do you keep aware of any of your contemporaries, say in British post punk or German kind of post punk? And does it even matter?
Oh, I listen to everything. I read. I read posts. I read books. I read everything. I read the news. I listen to music still. I'm very aware of everything that happens. I'm not so isolated. I'm very, very, very well informed. I know it's. I just read a lot also on whatever, in the net. Instagram, blah blah. All this shit. So all this influences me as well.
So do you think partially the role of an artist like you is a filter of a cultural filter, and you kind of remake it into something that makes sense to you? Everything you hear, everything you read.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
so at the moment, so you're working on the series of upgraded, updated re-releases. I mean, at some point, will you be thinking about making a new album? I mean, not that anybody has to make a new album at all. It's just because I was enjoying that run of albums and it stopped. So it's a purely selfish question. Or do you see the new songs you put on the old albums as kind of new albums by proxy, in a sense?
Yeah, I do. I do. I see that the way you put it. It's just I just love my what you said, curating. A bit of my Phillip Boa and the Voodoo Club Museum curating. Plus, I'm the same person. It's the same mind. I'm releasing new stuff with it, and I just for me it's cool. It's like I connected. I cannot connect the past with the future, and in my own way, and it's like just the way I like it. Yeah, I'd like to do a new album as well. I'm sometimes thinking of, yeah, that I want to make a new album too. Yeah,
And Germany itself, the Germany you grew up in, and to the Germany now. I mean, your generation, people my age, but basically, Germany's gone through a lot of changes, hasn't it? And it's a very different country. And I see people in their 60s in Germany. It's a very interesting bridge between the post-war Germany and the future Germany. I mean, do you feel that as well, or do you feel again that's not important? It's just where you are at certain periods of time.
yeah. I'm not so aware because I'm living here. I'm not so aware of that. But obviously, I follow the times. Germany changes. And Germany is not a bad place. It's just and especially the East when after the wall, and now Leipzig, for example, is like even also Dresden is like suddenly turned into a very interesting place, very cultural, very musician friendly, with a university that teaches all kind of cultural stuff and music, even pop music, rock music. It's that changed definitely in a very good way. And I don't know. Apart from that, nothing really changed. To me, I go to the gigs, I meet the old people, I meet new people. Nothing really changed. It's the same clubs. Like when we play in the Markthalle in Hamburg, it's just a great place. We play it twice. The same promoters, the same. I say hi to the bouncers. I said hi, how are you? Blah blah blah. Nothing changed, you know what I mean? And if they then they say, please mention they might remove the close the Markthalle, in Hamburg, and then I go play my gig and say, Markthalle is the best or whatever, some rock and roll stupid stuff, to
Yeah.
promote the Markthalle, you know what I mean? That's I just go there, you go there every year, and it's usually the same clubs. Sometimes new people, old people, I repeat. Right now, I'm now repeating. You know what I mean? And that's
Mm.
just, I love that.
I mean, obviously you're popular across the whole of Germany, but people would say within East Germany that people are really fanatical about what you're doing. Is there a reason for that at all? That your music really resonates in the East?
Um, in in East Germany, my music or my present is felt differently than in West Germany. I think um, when when the wall came down a year before, we were kind of the biggest international pop stars in East Germany, right? It's no joke. There was only one radio station. You can see that on paper. And then after the wall came down, we were the first one to go over and play. And I always respected them 100%. And I don't know, they never, even when we as a band, we were in West Germany, we had no success almost. As I said before, you could always trust that there would be loyal, fanatic people who would support you at the gigs. Why? I don't know. It's just because I think I understand the people from East Germany. I understand where they where they came from. It's just I respected them, never looked down to them or on them like a Western people from West Germany used to do. I never did that. I respected them from the first second on and before. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, which is a really interesting position to be in, isn't it? It's one of the few artists who sometimes somehow transcended the two sort of halves of Germany as they sort of came together.
Yeah, it's weird. Like I give you an example here in Dortmund, no one knows who I am, kind of. Almost a Cologne, a bit more. Hamburg, a bit more. Then I go to Berlin, Leipzig, and the people recognize me on the streets and say, "Ooh, ooh, ooh, ooh! I want." You know what I mean? Just, oh my God, and or on the planes. And I said, "Whoops." And usually they're from East Germany. You know what I mean? It's a bit like godlike. Sometimes I feel, which here in the West, I don't feel that so much. Respect, but no. Why? Weird. I don't know.
So thanks for your time, Philip. It's great to speak to you again.
And you?